We treat the air like a toxic waste dump because it's invisible and we think we can do nothing about it. It's been hidden in plain sight for decades. SuperFlox wants to combat air pollution where it is affecting our health as fast as possible and as widely applicable as possible. Let's make the existing fossil fuel business near zero emissions. We are emitting waste gases on an industrial scale into the air, not just CO2, NOx and SOx, but in particular also with vapors of volatile organic compounds, long hydrocarbons like benzene, which are very, very harmful to health. That problem is called air pollution. It is shortening our lifespan by years.
Greenhouse gases aren't our only worry. Air pollution is also having a constant and continuous catastrophic impact on our health.
The problem is occurring right here, where we live in Northwest Europe, particularly in my native country, the Netherlands and Belgium. We can look at a map here that shows the hotspots of harm, and you see that the Netherlands and Belgium are completely red. None of the traditional methods can really help. The good news is there's a solution. My name is Jaap Rademaker. I'm one of the founders of SuperFlox. The Flox stands for Flameless Oxidisation. SuperFlox can make most stages of the fossil fuel-based industries near zero emissions and can also make other industries, chemical industries and waste industries, near zero emissions as well. We really create clean air. It sounds too good to be true, but it is, and the purpose of this video is to explain that step by step to you. There's lots of methane emissions when you look for oil, when you do oil exploration. That's why you always see these interesting pictures of a big flame called a flare behind someone's head explaining something about the oil industry. That's very polluting to the air. It is in a way good for reduction of CO2 because methane is 80 times as bad as CO2. If you just set fire to it, it becomes largely CO2. So that's good, you're reducing CO2 by a factor of 80. The bad thing is, flaring happens at a very high temperature, and if you think of that flare flame, what's on the outside of that flame is normal air that we breathe. That's mostly 80% nitrogen. That, because of the high temperature, reacts with the flame to form nitrogen dioxide. The bad thing with NOx, as we call it, is it's 270 times as bad as CO2 for the greenhouse gas effect.
Methane is very bad for the environment for the greenhouse gas effect, so they flare it to get rid of it. But this flaring produces nitrogen dioxide, which is extremely harmful to health for humans and animals.
If you oxidize flamelessly, which is not combustion, you work at a low temperature, about 800-900 degrees, and you oxidize the product without a flame. And it's a reaction that is self-sustaining, so benefit number one, flaring needs loads of support gas to keep that flame going. Flameless oxidization, the way we do it at SuperFlox, does not require support gas.
SuperFlox's flameless oxidisation process is self-sustaining. Requiring no support gas to keep the oxidisation process going renders SuperFlox cost-efficient. Quite uniquely, we produce hardly any NOx.
So we reduce CO2 by a factor of 80, but we do not create that bad NOx. That's bad for greenhouse gases and it's very bad for your lungs, even in very small quantities.
SuperFlox does not create NOx like flaring does. NOx is not only harmful to the environment, but extremely harmful to health.
If you compare SuperFlox technology, flameless oxidation technology, the way we've developed it, with traditional methods, which create a lot of NOx, we've got a few other strange features. All technology is high temperature, low retention time. SuperFlox technology is lower temperature, around about 1000 degrees. and a longer retention time, and we introduce air at a much higher velocity and capacity, and that leads to the magic extra effect, which is we chop down any long molecule, any long hydrocarbon like benzene that is very, very carcinogenic, even in very small quantities. We can break that down with SuperFlox technology into CO2 and water vapor. We really create clean air.
The magic extra effect of SuperFlox technology is that it breaks down almost all noxious gases that are especially harmful to your health into just CO2 and water vapour. Simply said, it's better at preventing air pollution at source and cheaper than existing technology, ushering in a new generation of technology that instantly renders existing methods obsolete.
In our evolution, we've gone from dirty coal to dirty oil to a bit less dirty gas. And we're now progressing to renewables. I absolutely love and believe in renewables, and solar electricity is already the cleanest and the cheapest form of energy that we can make. The problem is the transition to renewables will require enormous investment. I'm delighted that solar is the cheapest form of energy and wind is very powerful and is much more successful than anyone could ever predict. And the costs are falling all the time. I fervently hope that we can make battery storage work on an industrial scale soon with good new technology. But meanwhile, whatever we do, we're stuck at least for a few decades with oil and gas, the fossil fuel industry, and even coal.
SuperFlox can help clean up the fossil fuel industry for the remainder of its lifetime. SuperFlox has an enormous field of applicability since it can treat 95% of waste gases. You can read about these on our website, but a few key examples we'll discuss here are waste gases created by tanker degassing, fracking, coal mining and coal gasification.
We want to use this technology that outperforms traditional technology in every respect, where we get the biggest bang for our buck, where we help lung health and air pollution the most. That's the Netherlands. And where does that occur in particular? We've got one of the biggest refineries in Europe in Rotterdam. What is then refined, the refined product, goes into these tankers and it goes to its destination. When at destination that tanker vessel discharges the cargo, the tank inside is not completely clean. There's some product clinging to the sides of the tank, the hold of the vessel, and there's a little bit of product still lying on the floor. What currently and traditionally does the industry do to prepare the tanker to make it fully clean to accept the next cargo? You'll be shocked to hear they open a hatch, they start industrial-sized fans, and they blow air through. What then happens is we are emitting volatile organic compounds, unburned, into the atmosphere, into the air that we breathe. It's called venting. So when a skipper vents his tanker vessel, the crew has got teary eyes, the chest gets hurt and hit and contracts. It is that bad. That's no exaggeration. Finally, on the 1st of October 2024, this venting of tanks is fully prohibited across the EU. SuperFlox is the Dyson Hoover that can clean that vapor from that tank. We connect an 8-inch hose to that ship. That goes to our 40-foot sea containerized unit, in which you have the flameless oxidisation burn chamber, and where we induce the gases in a certain way. We flamelessly oxidize the vapors. We create clean air. And we do so in a way that is very cost effective. There's no moving parts nearly. It doesn't need maintenance more than a day a year. It does not require filters. It does not require scrubbing granules that you sometimes see in CO2 scrubbers. They're a lot of work and you need to treat them and transport them. You literally fully treat any waste gases. You go from harmful chemicals and enormous amounts of CO2 to clean air. It sounds too good to be true, but it is. Coastal and seagoing tankers are sadly still allowed to vent, but only if they're in international waters. They have to sail out to sea, sometimes costs a day. They then have to spend a good 12 to 24 hours, depending on their size, blowing with those big fans their hold clean straight into the air. They do that on the North Sea. The prevailing wind in the Netherlands is southwest, so it blows straight onto land and goes into our air. Again, that's why we are a big red spot in all of Europe, and that's why I'm personally upset that we're not doing anything about it. Instead, the ship can stay in port. We come alongside with the barge, with the SuperFlox 40-foot sea containerized hoover. We connect up the hose, and 10 to 20 hours, depending on your size, later, you're clean. I compare the case of going out to sea and cleaning your boat and committing a mini eco-disaster versus staying in port, saving money and dealing with your pollution and your waste properly and completely. The crew is not at sea running a risk. It's even cheaper. And we prevent an environmental disaster.
SuperFlox offers an unprecedented new technology. This new technology stops harmful emissions and waste gases at source on an industrial scale. It transforms harmful gases to clean air and minimises greenhouse gases whilst being affordable and safe. It really is a no-brainer.
What's another market that we can make a huge dent in the problems? It's waste gases that are emitted when you do fracking. Now, fracking is indeed a very dirty industry, but the reality is, just in the last 20 years, fracking has been invented and has become so efficient that if Texas were a country, it would be the 5th biggest oil producer in the world. But the problem is, you can barely breathe there. The air quality is atrocious. We must not treat the air we breathe as a rubbish dump. We can currently treat 95% of all known waste gases. With just a modest R&D spend, we can cover 99% of waste gases. We've talked a little bit about degassing tanker vessels in a sustainable and responsible way, and that's cheap and totally doable now with SuperFlox technology. We've talked a bit about the next big dent in the problem we can make with SuperFlox, that's fracking waste gases. But it doesn't end there. We got to talk about coal. China has the most abundant supplies of coal and is the largest user of coal, mainly to generate electricity and for coal gasification, whereby you take coal, make gas and turn that into fertilizer. That creates huge amounts of methane. And in an earlier step, mining the coal, which can be done very cheaply in China, is also a problem because it releases methane in large quantities. China has already outlawed any venting of methane if it goes above 8%. Now, in the spring of 2025, if it's between 1 and 8%, you're also not allowed to vent it. So you have to treat it. SuperFlox is the cheapest, most effective and safest way, above all, to treat that methane. And we can generate energy from it, electricity which can be used or sold, and the owner of the mine gets carbon credits which are of monetary value. That all leads to an earn-back time of just 6 months, which for any investor and in any industry is spectacular. The hard thing with being green is people usually think it costs money. With SuperFlox you can be sustainable and green and clean and make money. It's also the chemicals industry, it's even the waste industry, because you got mountains of organic waste producing methane. Across Germany there are already flameless oxidisation solutions at work on the top of organic waste dumps. And that also gives us a couple of decades of technical experience on what works and what doesn't. 4 oil majors, one of which already certified us, others are in the process. Safety cannot be overstated. The interesting thing about SuperFlox technology as a new technology versus the old traditional methods of flaring and incineration, SuperFlox tech is much safer. Number one, because the temperature is lower, you're not 1500 degrees plus, but around about 1000 degrees. Number two, there is no open flame. The words flameless oxidisation explain that already. Number three, we have a number of secret sauce steps in our technology, one of which is we do not preheat the gases before they're introduced into the combustion chamber. That, by the way, also saves energy and input gas. We don't need that because the entire reaction in the combustion chamber is self-sustaining. We do not mix the gases before they reach the combustion chamber. Add to that the measures we have technically to prevent flashback, where the flame finds its way to the source and creates an explosion. That all creates much more safety than any other method that is traditionally available.
SuperFlox is not only cleaner, cheaper and more effective than alternatives, but it's also the safest solution.
They fell off their chair, the guys of Big Oil, and wanted to rerun the first 2 tests because they said, no, it's not right. We've got no NOx being produced. We are Big Oil, we know all the methods, and wherever you reduce CO2 by burning something, you create NOx. So, sorry, this can't be right. But it was right. The biggest private investment project in Canada is called Kitimat. It's $40 billion worth. You have the Champions League of investors there, the biggest oil companies in the world. The really big players are funding an LNG plant there. There are huge amounts of methane and acid waste gas being lost. The guys at Kitimat already for 7 years have been looking at ways to responsibly deal with the acid waste gases and the methane emissions. They've put little SuperFlox up against a bunch of traditional other methods and regenerative thermal oxidation and a lot of other established tech. SuperFlox came out as the cheapest, the best and the cleanest. We are the best available technology to deal with waste gases. The beauty of the SuperFlox technology, in addition to being safe and much cleaner than existing technology, is that it's easy to scale up, starting on the small end but high impact and the 40-foot sea-containerized SuperFlox unit. We have the MegaFlox, the GigaFlox and the TerraFlox. Same thing, just bigger. The MegaFlox with a 1 to 2 megawatt capacity, it can deal with a coal gasification plant. The next step up is the GigaFlox, that's 2 to 5 megawatts in capacity. It can make a project like Kitimat, biggest single private investment project in Canada. We can make that clean. Now, last step up is the TerraFlox, that's got 5 to 10 megawatts in capacity. That's capable of making an entire refinery near zero emissions. We are now at the very early stages of the application of this technology, but I think it's quite simple. If you really look at it carefully and you calculate it out, if you quantify the public health cost associated with lung and other diseases caused by air pollution, in addition to CO2 emissions reduction, big industry cannot afford not to do this. It's difficult that it's a new technology that we need to explain to people. It's been very rewarding to see that not just tested and proven, but certified by Big Oil, no less. Isn't it beautiful to have better health for lungs, less CO2 emissions, because we're attacking it at source on an industrial scale? That's a game changer. How fast can we do it is the real question, because it's not software, it can't multiply itself in a very short time. You need to build the technology. We've got to be profitable for our investors, make banks understand the technology. Then, with that money, we can expand faster and reduce the problem we all have quicker. I can't wait for the moment that SuperFlox is listed and people can just invest with €100 or £100 or $100 themselves. And they can have a nice investment that is promising, but at the same time they can have a feel-good investment that they know will reduce CO2 like nothing else will, and that's good for lung health because it literally turns harmful carcinogenic gases into clean air. It will take time to get the whole coal gasification industry cleaned with SuperFlox technology. It will take time to fit them to refineries. The beauty is it's a bolt-on.
Oil, gas and chemical industries' operational processes need not be redesigned or rebuilt. SuperFlox is, crucially, a bolt-on solution which, with only modest investment, will enable companies to clean up their processes, transform their image, and with that see their share prices go up. This is on top of the enormous benefits for lung health and reducing public health costs and global warming.
30 years ago, people didn't think about recycling a yogurt pot. People didn't think about having a catalytic converter in their car. That's now normal, and if you don't, you're a dirty polluter. SuperFlox should become known and understood in the same way. If you, as the consumer, can choose to spend a couple of pennies more when you put fuel in your car and have the peace of mind that you're not polluting anyone's lungs, not your own, not your kids, not your neighbors, that is a big driver. It really is my belief that where we can do something now and it is cost effective, it must be done. The only thing stopping us is people don't know. Don't burn it, flamelessly oxidize it. Let's make the existing fossil fuel business near zero emissions. We can, we should, we must.